In this tutorial video, we're going to be continuing our chapter on conditional statements, and we're going to be looking today at a new statement which is called the switch statement. So a switch statement gives you the option to test for a range of values for your variables. It can be used instead of long complex if-else-if statements. So basically what that means is, in your program, instead of having lots of if-else-if statements successively, you can just use one switch statement, which as you can see is represented here in the example. So you start off by declaring a variable, in this case named number, which has been assigned a value of 2, and then you type switch between parentheses the name of the variable, so number, and then you add brackets. Now between these brackets you have things that are called cases. Now what cases are basically conditions. So if a condition or case is true, the instruction for that case will be executed. So if I translate here, case 1 is basically if number is equal to 1, then we want to print out this sentence here. And then as you can see, you have an instruction called break. Now what break does is basically, if the case above is true, Java isn't going to bother going through the other cases. So break basically acts as a short circuiter. So we know that case 1 is false because number is not equal to 1. So let's move to the second case. So if number is equal to 2, then we want this instruction to be executed. So we know that number is equal to 2, so this is the instruction that will be executed, so case 2. For the sake of argument, let's say that number is equal to 10. As you can see, we don't have 10 cases for that condition. So what's going to happen is Java is going to move directly to the default case. Now the default case is basically going to execute this instruction if all of the cases above are false, which is the case because we've said number is equal to 10. So the default case will be executed in that example. So that's the theory behind the switch statement. In the next step, we're going to apply the switch statement to Eclipse. So meet me in the next step. So now that we've understood the theory behind the switch statement, let's try and apply that to a practical example. So just before we do that, I just want to come back to a notion I spoke to you about in the previous video, the notion of indentation. So if you looked at the previous video, I explained that indentation is the way you lay out your code. It's basically a way to gain or spend less time looking for errors if your code's written out correctly in the right format. So there's a general rule in Java which says that after each bracket like this, you should have an indentation on the next line. So there should be an indentation here. So to add an indentation, simply press tab on your keyboard like so. And then as you can see, there's another bracket here. So on the next line, we should have an indentation also. Most of the time, Eclipse will do these indentations automatically, but if it doesn't, you should do them yourselves just to get into the habit of doing it. It really is just a question of laying your code out correctly so you can find errors and not spending as much time looking through lots of lines of code and getting lost. So coming back to our example here, let's start by creating a variable. So let's call it user, assign a value of 18 to it. So as I said, Eclipse sometimes creates the indentations automatically like it's done here. So next line, let's open our switch statement. So switch user, which is the name of the variable, open up the brackets here. So as we've opened up brackets, we need to do an indentation. So as you can see, Eclipse hasn't done it, so we're going to have to do it ourselves. So press tab like so. Okay, So now that we've opened up our switch statement, we need to add cases. So let's start by adding the first case. Again, Eclipse has reverted our layout, so let's put it back like this. Case 18, system.out.println your 18, and then don't forget the break instruction, which should be underneath the instruction for the condition, so like that. Again, it's just to get into the habit of laying out your code coherently and correctly. So this is our first case, which basically translates into if user is equal to 18, then we want to print out this sentence. Let's add a couple more cases. So let's say case 19. So if user is equal to 19, we want to print out this sentence, you're 19, for example. And then don't forget the break instruction, which has to be underneath this instruction, the case instruction. Okay, and then let's create default instruction, default case, sorry, in the case where all of the cases above are not true. So system.out.println you're not 18 or 19, for example. So so to recap, we created our user variable, which we assigned 18 as a value. We then created our switch statement for that variable, and inside that statement we created two cases plus the default case. So if user is equal to 18, this instruction should be executed. If user is equal to 19, this instruction should be executed. And if none of these cases are true, then the default case should be executed. So user is equal to 18, so this case should be true. So let's test that by clicking on run. And as you can see, the first case is true, so this instruction is executed. So that's correct. Let's play around with the value here. Let's put 19, for example. In that case, the second case is true, so this instruction is executed. And then let's try the default case. So let's put 100, for example. And as you can see, none of these cases are true, so the default case is executed. So that's how you use switch statements in Java.